We've got a generation that has biceps that are filled with beer, where you have all humans in Bombay who are becoming rebels. Everybody who's supposed to be figuring out themselves is sitting and giving relationship gyan.
He runs one of the world's largest not-for-profit youth organization, Rishabh from I.I.M.U.N. What is the problem in interviewing Vijay Mallya?
You are giving voice and platform to a person who is a convicted criminal.
Please tell the rest of the world how you get access to a Rahul Gandhi.
He's not as difficult as what media makes him out to be. I must tell you about a person who is seen as the movie mafia of Bollywood, Karan Johar. I have great admiration for the man. Hustling is not Indian concept. It is mindlessly working. Delhi, with the current AQI of close to 600, we are smoking 25 cigarettes a single day. Might as well become a chain smoker. See, as soon as you join politics, you need to take the right or the left. And like I've written in the book, there is nothing right in the left and nothing left in the right.
I read in your book, all the youth has one similar problem.
It's the age of AI and deepfakes. Our phone is listening 24/7. We're trapped in the algorithm. Step outside the algorithm.
What problem are you trying to solve with I.I.M.U.N?
Bharatiya consciousness was not there. Most of the answers that we're looking for are actually there in our scriptures. That is why we started I.I.M.U.N.
Why is it not for profit?
Swasmai Swarupam Samajya Sarvaswam, which roughly translates into do less for oneself and do more for others. If podcasting is not done right, podcasting will stop.
Very anti-podcasters.
I'm not anti-podcasters overall. Please understand, I'm doing a podcast and talking about podcasters. When religion will be replaced with climate change, this nation will become Viksit for sure. I'm not against capitalism. I'm a Gujarati. I can't be against capitalism.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Aleena Dissects. For today's guest, we have somebody who I've mentioned has contrarian thoughts on every single topic under the sun, which is why it's going to be very interesting to interview him. He runs one of the world's largest not-for-profit youth organizations, and he's been doing this for a while. And we're going to talk to him about everything to do with the youth and the problems that are pressing of the youth today. Please welcome Rishabh from I.I.M.U.N. First of all, thank you so much for being on Aleena Dissects, Rishabh. Very excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's very kind of you.
But we are going to begin this podcast with talking about your Instagram post that talks about podcasters. You have a lot of opinions about a lot of things, but we'll start with the podcasting industry because I think that it was reflective. I think that it had some merit to it, but also the other side of it that people don't talk about is what maybe we can today because you have a podcaster here today.
The thing is, it's not generalizing all podcasters, but the thing is that when you've built a medium of conversation, which is as good as the fourth pillar of democracy. Journalism, for everybody knows that journalism is either right or left. There's nothing left now in journalism. So when podcast came about, I must clarify saying that I was a big believer saying that, look, we'll have a good podcast, we'll have good journalists, there will be real questions, there will be real conversations, not all serious, some fun conversations like these, but at the same point in time, not conversations that push a particular narrative. When you've got millions of people who are tuning into you and then you decide saying you want to figure out a person who is an absconder from India and then he's sitting in the United Kingdom and then you go out there and you take his interview, then I think you can use your platform for better purposes. There are better people who could be interviewed and those kind of people would be better role models for the next generation.
But what is the problem in interviewing Vijay Mallya that we're speaking about?
For one, if we actually know where exactly he is and if we can get the address and specifics, I think the Indian government also would be very happy and they would quickly expedite the process. But the idea that you are giving voice and platform to a person who is a convicted criminal, who is a person who has been a felon in the country, then that necessarily is not, in my opinion, the best form of journalism. Of course, if you're separating journalism and podcasting, and if podcasting is just about, getting a lot of views, then that's a different thing altogether. But if it is about getting serious conversation out there, then the serious conversation, it's like saying that Ajmal Kasab also should be given a voice. I will go and interview Ajmal Kasab as to why did you go and do what you did. Now, those kind of people for me are not people that need to necessarily be given a platform. Everybody else, of course, who is a patriot, who has different opinions, there's dissenting views that are there, you give them a platform. But
who's the judge of it?
The person who
Are you
is...
saying the law is the judge or the moral code of conduct is the judge of getting someone on a podcast or not?
The person who's giving the platform is the person who essentially should be the judge. And when they themselves are the judge, jury and the executioner, then I think when people have given them that kind of love and adulation, then you want to make sure that you're projecting the right kind of people. Because please understand, when you are figuring out somebody else or when you're dissecting somebody else, at that juncture you're giving a platform to that person. So there are a lot of people who are watching this, and those people are impressionable young minds. Those people will start saying that, look, this is also something that is acceptable, because as you would have seen in that episode, and the many, not just one particular episode of Vijay Mallya, but so many episodes that have been shot per se, they are just paid collabs. And I have nothing against paid podcasting either, but the idea is then how do you remain objective in your questioning when you're going to do everything as a paid collaboration? So the thing is, people who take the moral high ground saying that, look, you know what, we accept anyone on our podcast and you just need to have a story in order to come and speak, that doesn't seem to be what a lot of your top podcasters are doing. And therefore we've got a generation that has biceps that are filled with beer, where you have all humans in Bombay who are becoming rebels, and everybody who's supposed to be figuring out themselves is sitting and giving relationship gyan. So the idea that then you blame society and you blame the 10-year-old kid at KBC saying, look, why is he turning out to be like this? But look, he's growing up in a society where essentially everybody is like this. Everything that he's seeing is essentially like that. So when you're giving that kind of voice to these kind of people, then you're creating a society which is going to become a little more problematic and a little more difficult in order to deal with.
Okay, I'll tell you from my perspective how it is. I don't necessarily call everybody on the podcast that I agree to. For example, I called somebody that was vegan and
Correct.
promoting veganism.
Sure.
Now, I am not somebody who's vegan. I eat chicken, mutton, fish, everything. Okay. But that doesn't mean that I say that this is right or wrong. My job is to give that information to the audience. And then they know that, of course, I am the mediator. Of course, we're vetting the guests. Of course, we want great quality conversations, etc. But we can't, I feel like we're not the ones to say that this is wrong and this is right. For example, I had a psychic, okay? And now I don't know if people can read and see dead people or not, but that's the knowledge, experience and background that she comes with. And she has also helped and healed a lot of people in her 10-year career, which is what I saw. And everybody was like, oh my God, how did you get a Tamanna on the podcast? Because that's helped people. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree with people talking to dead people.
Sure.
But
see,
I'm the mediator.
If you disagree with somebody in terms of their opinions, that is fine. You're giving them a platform. That's not an issue. But the problem is when you're giving a convicted felon, you're giving, now tomorrow somebody will say, go and do an interview of Lalit Modi or Nirav Modi. But the idea
That's
that
happened.
Yeah, that has happened. And these are convicted criminals who've run away with money of normal people like you and me.
That's not what they are saying.
No, true. That's not what they're saying. But technically they have been convicted. They are welcome to be tried out here. They're welcome to come to India and then run trial, but they don't seem to want to do that. So please understand what I'm saying is, if you don't like Rahul Gandhi, does not mean that you don't give him a platform. But the idea being that, and that's what journalism should be, that irrespective of your personal opinion, you are making sure that you're asking the question and you're giving a platform to dissenting voices. Dissenting voices and criminality is very different. A person who is a criminal and who is a convicted felon is very different from a person whom you have a dissenting opinion with. So say for example, you don't like veganism, or say for example, I don't eat chicken. That does not mean that we don't have this conversation, because we have difference of opinions. Opinions are different from somebody running away with some money, or murdering somebody and then saying that, look, you need to give me my side of the story. And even in that, please see the questions. If you're asking hard-hitting questions of Parvez Musharraf also, there have been journalists from India who've gone and who've asked questions of people like him. They are at least trying to tell the side of a story or bring in a counter-narrative to the question, like how you're bringing the counter-narrative to the podcast side. Yeah. But you're not, this is a freewheeling, one-sided vanilla conversation that is taking place. And when that kind of conversation takes place, it's on the other end, the people who are watching it are going to only get one-sided information on that conversation at least. So suddenly everyone's now saying that, look, Vijay Mallya was somebody who was perhaps pressurized by government, or people did wrong to him, etc. So, well, if that is the case and if those are the facts, then why not come to India and get tried? So my only problem is, don't give voice to criminals. Don't do things that are immoral in nature. Of course, morality is something that is defined by an individual. Man is what he makes of himself. And that therefore is dangerous sometimes, because when the man becomes greater than the mic and the platform, then it becomes a problem. And what's happened with these leading podcasters, unfortunately, at least as it comes across, is that the mic has become secondary, the individual has become primary. Please see the names also of all these podcasts. There is no name which does not have their name in it. The thing is that it's self-promotion. It's not about the journalism per se. You see news at 9 p.m., you don't see Rajdeep. You see Rajdeep Sardesai every night, but you don't see Rajdeep Sardesai being the person who is giving their opinion. In most podcasts, what's happened also, instead of asking questions, it's become about giving their own opinion. So that's also, as long as you don't take this as journalism and you take this as an influencer, I have no problem.
But that's what it is. I think you're confusing it. I don't think any podcaster essentially calls themselves journalists, because journalism comes with a lot of thought, integrity, morals, laws that are, that you have to do in terms of being a journalist, versus a podcaster is exactly that. They are giving you opinions of their own most of the times. I don't do that. I leave it on the guest because I don't have all the information in the world. But a lot of them are going to them to know that what is, for example, the young people thinking about, say, relationships or
Tell
politics.
me, which are these young people from these podcasters who've interacted with young people? I interact with young people on a daily basis. The last 14 years of what I have done is interact with young people. How many of these people have come to physical events which are not our organization, but Roadtract, ISEC, etc., etc.? How many of them have been presidents of youth-run entities in order to give gyan about young people when you yourself have not interacted with young people? Somebody who's interacted with young people, I'm shy of giving gyan to young people because I think that they're smarter than we are. So I'm saying that where is the moral compass that you are sitting holier than thou, where you are sitting out there and you are giving gyan about issues, or giving the mic, for example, to somebody who's a convicted felon? I have no problems. Please, by all means, take interviews. It is necessary. Even make it a business. There is no problem in that also. But at least don't set the benchmark somewhere that, you are... not calling. Tomorrow will become like this. Quite honestly, if we find the people who were responsible for attacks in our country in the recent past, some of these people are capable. God forbid, some of these people are capable of going and saying, "Give me an interview so that I get more TRP," which has become what is the problem, and therefore people don't watch news, and that's what's going to happen, unfortunately, with podcasts. If podcasting is not done right, podcasting will stop. People will stop watching it, just like what's happened with news. Everybody who wants to watch a particular opinion switches on a particular channel, and then the others don't. So this is exactly what's going to happen. And the problem in this is young people who are 17 and 18 are forming opinions which are half-baked, which are half-truths. Like you see influencers as well. I know so many of these finance influencers who don't even have a degree, who are giving gyan on finance. Now, how are you giving gyan on finance when you are CFA level 1? And if you have that kind of knowledge and you're a prodigy and you're giving gyan, fair. But if you're then telling somebody saying, please invest in this stock market tip and you will get 25% return on that, then eventually you have to delete that episode. Because the point is that you're giving a voice to people who are these finfluencers or doctors who have essentially not studied MBBS but seen Grey's Anatomy and then are giving gyan. So, and there's a generation who's growing up on this, Aleena. That is what worries me, and that is what should worry our government, which somehow it's not worrying our government, and that's what worries me even more. How are we okay with the fact that we're watching and consuming nutrition reels from a person who himself or herself or themselves are people who are essentially not qualified enough in order to give that gyan? So I just feel that even after SEBI has come hard on finfluencers, yet you have rampant misinformation on the internet, and WhatsApp university has become the new university which everybody studies in. So that is what has become worrisome in podcasters or influencers. Otherwise, I'm all for, as I've written in my book, there's so many people from I.I.M.U.N who've become influencers, and I've known their journeys. I'm not against that, but I'm also for the information that you give should be at least more or less accurate. And if you don't know what you're saying, then please say that, please verify what I'm saying and please verify whatever I'm saying and then put it out per se.
That's what we put a disclaimer that the thoughts and opinions are of the guests. You would have to research if you're willing to, for example, go in and try something that they are saying. I think that is also important.
That's very important. That's very, very important. And therefore, I think the culture of influencers and the culture of podcasters is a dangerous one. The role models of this generation are real models. And the problem is that PT Usha doesn't make reels. The problem is Rahul Dravid doesn't make reels. The problem is Sudha Murthy doesn't make as many reels. The problem is Deepak Parekh does not make reels. Mukesh Ambani does not sit and make reels. But yes, there are sharks in tanks who make reels. And they're very different from whales in oceans. And I would rather have a generation where we had more whales in oceans and less sharks in tanks.
Very interesting. I want to now just backtrack and go from the beginning of your career for our audiences to know how you've run this and started this. So you have started the world's largest. You've started
one of the world's largest. Yeah,
no,
but
it
however,
is the world's largest
sure.
youth-run organization. Tell me, how did you even come up with that at such a young age?
See, I have to say one of the world's largest for the factual accuracy part, considering I said so much of the factual accuracy part. But the only thing is that so it was an interesting thing. I was 19. I participated in a conference overseas. I finished in the first few in that. It was at Harvard University. Came back and told my grandfather saying, I'll run the family company. He looked at me sheepishly and he said, Rishabh, तुम्हें भारत के बारे में क्या पता है कि तुम company चलाओगे? So I said, भारत के बारे में क्या जानना है in order to run the company? And then he said that if you can answer this question on foreign relations, then I will let you run the company. And so I looked at him and I said, this is not a bad thing. And Shashi Tharoor had just come back then. And as a presumptuous teenager, now I'm a presumptuous adult, but as a presumptuous teenager, I thought that this is not a bad bet. Let me answer this and hopefully I'll be able to run the company. So he asked me, which is the first book on foreign policy that was ever written? I said, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. So he held my long disheveled hair that time from behind and he said, Rishabh, there's a book written by Chanakya which is called Arthashastra. And Arthashastra ke बारे में 2 घंटे का भाषण दिया. To be really honest, I heard it from one ear and I removed it from the other. But that very year in 2010, President Obama had come to India. Very many people who met him, but then he decided to meet a bunch of young people. In all the smart people that gathered, smart young people that gathered, one over-smart student managed to get in. And President Obama started his discourse at St. Xavier's College in Bombay with the world has so much to learn from India. And then he spoke about India and the many things about our country. And then that got me to start thinking, saying, Ari, ye to Arthashastra mein bhi yehi kuch likha hai. So then I went back and I said, Granddad, did you call him up? So he said, Rishabh, if that was the case, our company would be running in 100 countries, not just in India. So then he said, Abhi jaake padho. So I used to be a voracious reader. I'd read Machiavelli and Aristotle and blah, 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 but never read India. Because India in our curriculum is never there only. As I sheepishly always say when they run out of chief guests and call a cheap guest in school, that we've produced more Britishers than the British have. So then I picked up the Arthashastra. I kind of realized that there is so much that is there in that. Then read all the other books, eventually to the Upanishads and so on and so forth. That's where I realized that most of the answers that we're looking for are actually there in our scriptures. It is there in the Indian lens. But the Indian lens is never given to us. And that is why we started I.I.M.U.N. I.I.M.U.N started with that, saying that let's Indianize what was I.I.M.U.N back then. 19 schools did I.I.M.U.N conferences back then. So I said, let's Indianize this whole concept. And that's how I.I.M.U.N started. So it was a 3-day event in which speakers come and engage in colloquy. It's interspersed by song and dance. There was yoga in the morning. Then there were debates that took place after. This then catapulted into a movement slowly and gradually. Today, 150,000 schools do I.I.M.U.N conferences. And I.I.M.U.N does a plethora of activities. And people at I.I.M.U.N tell me, saying, Rishabh, only 16 to 22-year-olds run it. So now you're not 22. I said, but I'm 21. So this is what I.I.M.U.N essentially is. And this is how the journey began.
Okay. What problem are you trying to solve with I.I.M.U.N?
So Bharatiya consciousness was not there. Indian consciousness was not there. The thing is that as much as we say it's a global world, it's also important to be able to contextualize it from the lens that we look at it. Whether it is in terms of mental health, whether it is in terms of the LGBTQ+, whether it is in terms of any of the contemporary issues that are there today, all of these have Indian roots. But the problem is that we keep looking at it from a very myopic Western lens. So with I.I.M.U.N, the idea was to be able to get an Indian context to the issues of our times, and which is essentially what I'm planning to do in the book as well. So this is to raise Indian consciousness is what I.I.M.U.N essentially is set to do.
Got it. And you work with so many of young India and for so many years. And I read in your book, you said that from Ahmedabad to Amsterdam, everybody, all the youth has one similar problem. What is this similar problem that we all are facing? What the youth is facing?
See, I can't speak on behalf of every young person. I'm not an expert, and I can't be those podcasters. So what I will definitely do is definitely share what I feel is happening around me and the immediate people who work in my team. I do feel that we now started thinking that we live in a simulated reality is what I firmly believe, and the reason why is because it's the age of AI and deepfakes, and even when we are keeping our cell phones aside, at that juncture, whatever we are talking is essentially coming on the cell phone. So, for example, if the two of us are talking about Donald Trump and Trump, and the cell phone's next to us, when we look at the phone and we open Instagram, the thing that we will see is either Donald Trump or we'll see Zoran Mamdani challenging Donald Trump. But the idea that this is essentially, a phone is listening 24/7. They are not leaving us. So we are trapped in the algorithm. What happens in the algorithm, as you very well know and all your viewers know, is they only feed you the same content. So you like cat videos and they'll keep giving you the cat videos. You like Animal Planet, they'll keep giving you different types of animals per se. The same thing becomes an echo chamber. When it becomes an echo chamber, then young people have very strong opinions. Like my friend who's come today with me, he has very strong opinions on different subject areas. And the problem that happens then is that you're having a generation that has very strong fundamental beliefs on issues, but that is necessarily from one particular prism. So the idea is that if we can step outside the algorithm, if we start realizing that we are being played like a pawn on a chessboard, and we start reclaiming the video game, that we are no longer going to be characters in the video game, but we're going to control the video game, we're going to control the chessboard, we're not going to be pawns on the chessboard. If that happens, then I think this generation is the smartest generation ever. And yet, but the problem is the algorithm traps us. And because the algorithm traps us, we get one-sided opinions. And today's leaders, many who come from I.I.M.U.N, have very strong opinions. And there's nothing wrong with strong opinions, but you should be willing to listen to the other side. Like today, we had a fantastic conversation on podcasters.
For sure. Tell me, how do you get away from this stimulated environment? Since you're giving the problem, I want you to give the solution also.
Again, I'm no expert in giving the solution, but one of the things that helps me per se is you need to pause and reflect. I think it is very important in order to stop, to breathe, and to think as to why are we saying what we are saying. And so many times I found myself impulsively react. We grew up in the time where social media was not so much so, but even still impulse would kick in because you are in that age bracket where hormones are behaving in a particular manner, etc. So today's teenagers are growing up with all of that biological drama that is taking place in their life, plus all this social media drama that is taking place in their life, and therefore it's becoming almost, it's very important in order to pause and reflect. So I think just leaving your cell phone at the end of the day, 20 minutes before you go to sleep, I think is the best thing that could possibly happen. And sometimes I tend to look at the fan or the ceiling, and sometimes I look out of the window. Both the time, sometimes I just fall asleep. But the idea that you are trying to reflect on your day and trying to figure out as to what happened and why it happened and why did you act in a particular way will give a lot of clarity to the decisions that young India will be making for themselves. They will realize that it is then their voice and not the voice of a podcaster, whether the podcaster is as good as Aleena or is not as good as Aleena. But the idea is essentially that you don't need to be voicing somebody else's opinions, including mine, but you need to be thinking for yourself as to whether this is your opinion or is this the algorithm giving you a particular thing saying, no, you need to behave in this manner.
Right. You know what I do? So basically, I don't take in all the information that's given to me because we're living in information overload. And I feel like it's okay if I don't know everything all the time. And
Correct.
so I restrict myself from gaining all the information, all the sides, all the time, because we're in the media field and you're constantly up to what is happening in the media, right? To consume so much of it is too much. So if I need to know something, I'll just call somebody or ask them what is happening, but to put myself to so much information, I feel like then it'll be too much stimulation and I need to stay away from it so that my own brain can think.
Which is a fantastic way of doing it, yeah. Because sometimes when you have too much of when you have too much of information, that leads to overthinking, and overthinking is dangerous. So the idea that sometimes you shy away from too much of information is very important, and therefore TMI is not always very good. Whilst you might be interested in the latest tea that is happening, when tea gets added with M&I think it's a dangerous combination. So yeah, I think what you're doing is a good way of approaching it.
Tell me success stories from your organization, like which has been like the most memorable or fond one. What has a student gained out of the organization after?
So there have been numerous that are there, but more than participants, because participants come for events, they come for programs and conferences and so on and so forth, and therefore they do get impacted is what one would like to believe. But those who I have been fortunate enough in order to see at a closer distance, one of them which I would love to share is of a young boy who did not come from a very privileged background, but his parents made sure that he was given the best exposure in terms of academia, etc. And he studied at Jai Hind College, and I remember him even struggling to make ends meet in order to pay the fees of Jai Hind College, which are not very high in relative comparison. So I met him when just before Jai Hind College, and he volunteered at the organization, and very hardworking, diligent boy. And he wasn't the best when it came to communication skills in English, but his Hindi was spick and span. And therefore he once came to me and he said, Rishabh, मैं आपको हिंदी सिखाऊंगा, आप मुझे अंग्रेजी सिखाओ. So I said, that's a great this thing. So then we started talking and conversing like that. And the boy worked for about 4 years at the organization, right through Jai Hind College. And one of the things that I noticed in him is that he was the first one to come, the last one to leave. Some of us who are slightly more privileged, like ourselves, sometimes don't make the most of the opportunity. But in him, one of the things that I saw is because this was the best for him at that juncture, he put in all his effort. He did conferences in different parts of the country in order to speak about India and different parts of the world. But one of the things that I'm most proud about is what he did in Srinagar. Srinagar, as everybody knows, is one of the most difficult places in order to integrate into mainland India, not for their fault, but because of the fact that sometimes we've not tried enough. And he said, I want to do a conference in Srinagar. I said, this is a great challenge, because to talk about India in Srinagar is perhaps one of the most challenging things. But the boy managed to put together the event out there, got 1,000 students to participate in the program. And one of the students who participated in the program out there got impacted so much so that he then did his MBBS, and after doing his MBBS, he realized that he wants to passionately serve India. So today, Dr. Abrar Hussain is a doctor from Srinagar who got motivated to do things for India, gave his UPSC, and perhaps will be joining the civil services. He's giving his UPSC and will join the civil services very soon.
Oh, wow.
The idea that a boy from Srinagar got impacted by this boy from Bombay, who came from a humble background but read voraciously, worked diligently, learned communication, marketing, sales, how to talk to people, event management, HR, and all of that. And then after he finished I.I.M.U.N and got tired of me and my long sermons without funny bone, he came and he said that, Rishabh, now I'm going, because at 22 we tell them saying, please go and do something better, otherwise you'll be stuck at I.I.M.U.N. Few, of course, who are willing to continue. And then he joined a big investment banking company. He's done very well for himself. Bought a couple of flats by himself, and today is a great, proud example for the organization. His name is Pratik Davare. I'm incredibly proud of him. Whenever he comes to the organization, he talks to young people and shares his experiences, both eloquently in Hindi and in English. And I have not been able to master the two languages as well as he has. So, yeah.
From what you've said, you've obviously interacted with a lot of students from a lot of different places in India. What do you think is the biggest difference between a student from the tier 1 cities versus the tier 2 cities?
I think tier 1 cities, we get a lot of opportunities. Tier 1 cities have a lot of direct access. People like you and me enjoy more direct access. I come from privilege. I make no bones out of it. I do feel that it's what you do with that privilege that matters. But in tier 1, that privilege is much more. in tier 2 or more pronounced as tier 3 and 4, they don't have those opportunities. And because they don't have those opportunities, they have to make do with things that are given to them. But I've seen conferences both take place in a Jharsuguda and in a Delhi. I can tell you with utmost conviction that a kid in Jharsuguda is as passionate, if not more, than the kids who are in Delhi when it comes to political, social issues. In fact, a great yardstick of that is our finale event, which takes place at the end of every August, where all the best schools across the country compete. The school that won this year, for the longest time, it's been schools from metro cities, but the trend has been changing to tier 2, tier 3. This year, there was a school from Srinagar, not just Srinagar, but very close to the border in Kupwara. A school from Kupwara that beat all the big IB fancy schools across the country. And this just shows the fact that how, if you give equal opportunity to people in different parts of the country, then they're much better than tier 1. Yeah, I'm a tier 1 child, but I will say that they're definitely better than me. I don't know, of course, there are very hardworking people in tier 1 cities and those who make most of the opportunities. But I think if the same opportunities were accorded to a person in tier 4 outdoes tier 1 any day.
And what was the difference that made them win?
Diligence. But the ones who were from my first team, I kind of realized that many of them who didn't come from the same backgrounds they work 100 times harder. It's just simple. They are much more diligent. They're much more disciplined.
Do they have more of a drive than we do?
I think all of us have a drive to do things, but it's just the fact that how much do we do after we have the drive. And that's what I said, that discipline and diligence is something that is sometimes lacking in certain areas across the country, which are given a lot of benefit.
Why is it not for profit?
For clarity and not charity. Because the idea that if you were to take money and withdraw money from this, then the purpose would not be pure. And I feel that when you are trying to give back or do things, and a non-profit is seen as giving back, but let me just clarify this. I have learnt more and grown more from I.I.M.U.N than anything that I could have ever given to the organization. So I think when you're trying to build other people, I do feel that there are certain things that should be charitable in nature. And I definitely do think that when you are trying to talk about education and things like that, it should be charity. It should not be business.
Do you think there would be more motivation though if it was financially inclined towards the people, students?
I think if there is more finance that is involved, what happens is that then there is an ulterior motive also that comes in for the people who are running ship and also people who are associated. Today, a celebrity comes to I.I.M.U.N, they're not paid, Aleena. I've had the biggest names come to the organization, and many of their PR agents tell us saying that if they come for an event or if they come for a program or they come for a talk, my thing is that when you're coming for a leadership camp, the 30 leaders of I.I.M.U.N are coming, the organization is putting in a lot of effort in bringing them together. We don't have the bandwidth and the budgets to give celebrity. So I think when money comes into the question, then the purity is lost, because then everybody comes for money. Everybody will, then there's a price tag to everything. But when you come with the purity of intent of giving back, then they are not looking at the watch. And I've had people who've come for the first time with PR agencies, and the next time onwards, the PR agent is not there only, because they're like, yahan to na media hai. I.I.M.U.N is not publicized. Na media hai, na publicity hai. So why is sir going again and again out there? But they forget to see that sir also within him has or ma'am within her has the concept of wanting to give back. And I think there's a fundamental basic tenet of Indian culture which says Swasmai Swarupam Samajya Sarvaswam, which roughly translates into do less for oneself and do more for others. But the problem is this hustle culture. The problem of gaining and doing things for oneself has become so much that even, and I'm not against capitalism, I'm a Gujarati, so I can't be against capitalism. But the idea that in that rat race, we've forgotten that we have to serve society. We don't have to only serve ourselves. So that's why, and I'm very lucky. I say this with fully cognizant that if I didn't have the privilege, or I didn't come from the privilege that my family has accorded me, I would have probably done this very differently, and there would be pecuniary transactions that would be involved. But if I do have that as an opportunity, then why not make most of that opportunity, as long as I have willing parents and grandparents who are willing to contribute.
I'm very glad you said that, because that makes a mindset shift when you are building something not for profit, because it comes with like, oh, I have a certain kind of backing and maybe this is something that would be good for society in general.
Yes, and when money gets involved, no, it becomes a transaction, it becomes commercial. Then it's like a give and take. And when it's a give and take, then it's measured in every way. And one of the things that I've realized is whenever there is a measured conversation at that juncture, it's not a no holds barred conversation. And therefore we switch off the camera sometimes when the celebrity come, and then we let them have those conversations with the children. So it's like, it's such an honest conversation, and the kids are able to derive so much more than all the cameras clicking away all the time. That's great for Filmfare and IFA and all of that, and that's very nice, and it should be there. But, and I.I.M.U.N also has the click, click, click when you come for the events. But real conversations, people sometimes are not willing to have.
I think it's also because there's so much pressure on celebrities on what they are saying and what can be news out of that, that if they don't have a camera, they can finally just be themselves and say what they really think. Because like when you look at them, it's so PR trained that every word they're saying, they're thinking about and being careful about what they're saying. And with students, I don't think that makes so much sense.
Of course. And when I did my conversation with Cyrus Brocha about the book, and there are certain parts of the conversation that talk about how there are dichotomies in religion, about Hinduism, Islam, etc. You will see on the reels of Islam, there are people who are a Muslim who are saying, look, he is an Islamophobe. And in the ones that are about Hindus, there are people who are saying, look, he's against Hinduism. There are people who come from a particular background, who have a particular worldview, are always anti-Hindu. And they don't see the picture in totality, but they see only those myopic those reels that are put out. And therefore, I don't blame the celebrities, because if you are a celebrity who has a public presence and who has to deal with people on a continuous basis, you'll go through those comment sections and you will feel bad, because you'll be like, look what's happening to my followers. But the reason why I'm speaking freely is because my job is not in order to care about public discourse. It is about public opinions on the view that I'm giving. It is about building leaders, and therefore I can speak my mind. I think it's important in order to be able to speak my mind without seeing the comment section, because I'm not worried, and I don't have to be worried.
And what would happen if you got a lot of hate on what you said?
In the few things that I've written which are there on social media, I think there is a lot of hate that is there. But
how do you deal with that? Does it matter to you at all?
No, I think that if I am giving my opinion, and that opinion is nuanced and is coming from facts, and I believe very strongly in it, but I'm open to another perspective in that same conversation, then I'm okay with putting my opinion out, and I'm perfectly okay with somebody having chicken and sitting on the same table. And that's the plurality of India, which we've come to respect. So I'm not too bothered about the comment section. What I am definitely cognizant of is what people strongly believe in, and to understand why they believe in that and what is happening because of that. So I do read the comment section for that, saying, Acha, so is it just Islamophobe, or is there some merit to that, or is he just Hinduphobe, or is he just God-phobic, etc.? Or is there some merit in that in terms of the content I've given, and is there an opposing view to that? And if that opposing view exists, then it is my duty in order to study that opposing view and to understand more about that opposing view before talking about the subject the next time around. So yeah.
Now at I.I.M.U.N, you have a lot of different personalities who come and speak to the students. But I was most interested in how you were able to get personalities like a Rahul Gandhi and a Shashi Tharoor to come and talk to students.
About Rahul Gandhi or Dr. Tharoor or any of these people, I think it's just about reaching out to them. They're just normal people who want to have conversations and share their opinions.
Please tell the rest of the world how you get access to a Rahul Gandhi.
A lot of people in his party also keep asking the same question, how do you get access to him? And I said, he's not as difficult as what media makes him out to be. I personally at least believe that.
I'm reaching out to him after this podcast.
You must. And I do hope that he responds. And the idea that sometimes people don't reach out to people because they think those people won't respond. Like, it's like, I've had so many people telling me saying it's impossible to reach out to, say, for example, Mr. Gandhi. And I said, no, I think, it may take a while for him to respond to you, because he's incredibly busy. But if he does see the letter, and if he takes note of that, I'm sure he's going to respond, because I don't know about the politics, but he's a very amiable man who seems to care deeply about young people. So he definitely would, and he's done, I think, a couple of conversations with only young people. In fact, just recently, I saw one where he sat down with under 18 children, and he spoke to people who are below the age of 18. I have not seen for the longest time a lot of politicians do that. So I think sometimes we read too much into the politics and forget the people.
You said you had an interaction with Dr. Shashi Tharoor also.
Dr. Tharoor is somebody who I have a great admiration for, and he's been associated to I.I.M.U.N since 2014.
Okay.
He's the chairman of our advisory board. I think now he's tired of seeing me. But he's a man I tremendously respect, not just for his worldview and his view about India, and his the very secular stand that he echoes, but also because of the fact that the human being is a very nice person. I've seen Shashi Tharoor at close distance talking to his grandchildren, where he's holding the phone, and just like how every doting grandfather would, he's playing with his grandchild on the phone. There is no big English word being used, and there is no fancy ideology being spoken about. I think Dr. Tharoor is outside of the things that people know about him, that he's a great orator or he's a great statesman, he's one of our finest intellectuals. He's a great human being. And I'm very lucky to be able to see this human side of these people after the many encounters at I.I.M.U.N. Like with Mr. Gandhi also, the first time I met him was, of course, because of I.I.M.U.N, but him or Dr. Tharoor, and before I get called out as only a person who talks to the Congress party, I must also mention Dr. Mohan Bhagwat, who's the Sarsanga Chalak of the RSS, who I have great admiration for. And I openly write about it in my last book, where I say that this RSS, that is Rishabh Sanjay Shah, has much to learn from the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, which is that RSS. मैंने काफ़ी समय बिताया उनके साथ, and I can tell you this safely and surely that the people that these people are sometimes much better than what the public makes them out to be. So so I think there are many such incidents with some of these people who are very kind to me.
Who's like the most memorable experience you've had with like a celebrity or a politician? Like you will never forget.
I must tell you about the episode with a person who is seen as the movie mafia of Bollywood. People project him as, I will only give an opportunity to those people who are from a particular clan or background, which is Karan Johar. And you always have a worldview towards Karan Johar, and that Karan Johar is going to think about a particular issue in a particular manner only. But I'll tell you something about Karan, and he had come to I.I.M.U.N. He had come without... this was, of course, after his first couple of conversations with me, etc. He'd come without any press, any media, anybody. Just one person along with him had come, and they spent time at the organization for a considerably long period of time, much outside of the allotted time. He answered each and every question. He interacted with each and every student. And the thing that hit me the most about the man was the fact that he took out time to take interest in the lives of those whose questions he was answering. The two of us are talking, and before talking, you wanted to understand me and vice versa. But this man was sitting out there trying to understand those 30 kids, and why is this kid doing what he's doing, and how can I add more value to him. Now he's Karan Johar. He has like some 3 million things to do. There's no camera crew, there's no one to prove anything to, but the fact that he actually wants to impact young people. The thing about people like him is the fact that they're sometimes misunderstood because of what media projects them to be. The fact that he took out that time without any picture being taken, in the sense without any video being taken, to my mind was extraordinary, because up until then I also had...
You also had a certain perception about him.
That, he's Karan, he's going to be busy. How is he going to sit and faff and chit-chat with a 16 or an 18-year-old and say, tumhari life mein ye hona chahiye. And this is how it should be. And this is what I strongly feel about it. And there he was doing that, and he's not done that once, he's done that multiple times. And the fact that he's taken out time to do that multiple times makes me realize that, look, this man is actually interested in young people, and that's how he knows the pulse of our country. You somehow see only the pictures that he makes.
Yeah.
You see the fact that he's talking to Ananya Pandey or Janvi Kapoor. You forget that sometimes Karan Johar is talking to a normal 18-year-old and he's trying to understand the pulse of the nation. And then he's making the Dharma film, which is making 500 crore. So everyone's seeing the top line of the 500 crore and saying, how does Karan Johar know what young people are thinking? But this is how Karan Johar knows, and I'm sure he's doing that with so many young people across the board. So I just have great admiration for that man, and he's again a great human being who's again misunderstood by many as somebody who's and I don't know how he casts people and things like that, but I would like to believe that's not in that way. But he's a great human being, and he takes a lot of interest in young people. And for me personally, anybody who takes interest in young people without any ulterior motive to it is a great person to have.
I agree with you on how you need to really understand India to be able to create content of any kind, even if it's cinema or it's a reel. You have to understand how people are, and I think he did that very correctly in Rocky and Rani. I saw that there were so many incidences and issues that he spoke about that he couldn't have known if he was just privileged living in his bubble. You have to understand India to understand the problems that are existing.
The subculture of the country is shaped by Dharma movies. But the thing what people don't realize is Mr. Johar is very sharp. He sits with not just behind the lens, but he's sitting there and understanding the pulse of what is happening in the nation. And therefore, he's being able to shape it in a particular way. And therefore, all of what he spoke about out there, where you saw, Ranveer Singh dancing, I think that was Kathak if I'm not wrong. And when you see all of that, you see that it is in Indian society, he's been talking to young people, he's trying to take opinions from those people, and then he's putting that on the celluloid. Apart from the craft, I think he's one of the smartest people out there, and well regarded, of course, in this industry, that is entertainment and media. But I think whenever we speak about him across industries, and I've seen this in particularly in business as well, one of the smartest, most intelligent people in the country, name is Karan Johar. I think he's one of our finest ambassadors also. Cultural exports of the country is cinema, and therefore all his cinema across the world is watched ardently. Today, more people know Shah Rukh Khan than they know some of our podcasters. And I would like it. I would like it to be that way.
It's very anti-podcasters.
Anti-influencers and podcasters who don't make sense. I'm not anti-podcasters overall. Please understand, I'm doing a podcast and talking about podcasters. So I'm not anti-podcasters. I think there's great merit if you do it properly and do it with a conscience. But you need to do it with some moral values.
And I think there's the learning curve to that also.
Of course.
I'm going to defend myself. No, but also I'll tell you, for example, understanding India, I got a lot of feedback in the year one that I was doing the podcast, saying that your podcast is seeming very elite, just like you. And I took it very personally. I said, no, I don't want that to happen, because I want to be able to speak to people from all different walks of life. And I anyways do that off of camera. And so I decided I'm going to travel more. I'm going to talk to people in the interiors of India more, so I can tell their stories, get people who understand them. And I also changed the language of the podcast. Like, I was only doing it in English before, and I said, no, I'm going to switch the language to make it English so more people can understand what I'm saying.
Should we start talking in English?
I don't know if you can do that freely. But having said that, now I'm since we're talking about politics and politician, I read something very interesting in your book.
Sure, please.
And I have bookmarked it, so I'm going to open it now. Okay, I'm going to read it out, guys. This is Young, Wired and Not Woke book. You've written, politics in India isn't just played on the ground, it's played in the names of the gods above. So it's only right that we explore who God is. Please explain.
This is very true. Please see, right before the elections, everybody is going to a mandir or a masjid, is talking about how religion is so very important. And those same people, after the election is over, have forgotten the religion per se. So God has been reduced to a voter magnet and a campaign poster. And I fundamentally believe in this, because if you see and these people have given allocation of budgets also accordingly. We have 7,50,000 temples, we have 3 lakh mosques, we have over 50-60,000 churches. In each of these places of worship, there are more than 50 people who go and worship every day. But when it comes to schools, there are 14 lakh schools, out of which almost 60 to 70% of these institutions do not have more than a couple of teachers. And in most schools, less than 50 students go and study. So we have more places of worship where there are more people that are congregating and less when it comes to education. This has led to religion-based politics, where everybody is playing politics in the name of God. And then you wear a particular dhaga because, it's going to get you and garner those votes. And you see a lot of people keep asking, saying, keep discussing this, and I've been privy to these conversations, saying, why is India not progressed as much as China has? And a lot of people say that because we are a democracy and they are not a democracy. And given the fact that it's much more difficult to take diverse people together. But please see, in China, 93% of the population is largely atheist, or they don't identify with a particular religion. Now, there is no disturbance when it comes to day-to-day life in that regard, because here they're controlling the narrative, politicians are controlling the narrative, and every election the issue is मंदिर यही बनेगा, मस्जिद यही बनेगा. और यदि मंदिर और मस्जिद के बारे में ही आप बातचीत करने वाले हो तो देश की प्रगति कैसे होगी?
But they're doing it for a reason, because they want that to be the reason why people vote for them.
But why not talk about issues that are going to actually transform the country? For example, in 2002, when there was an India Shining campaign, it said that 20 years from now, India will be a developed country. Today in 2025, we have what I think is a very laudable Viksit Bharat campaign of 2047. तो 20 साल और लगेंगे भारत को विकसित बनाने में. The problem is, जब तक आप जो मुद्दे हैं जहाँ देश का विकास होने वाला है, उस पर जब तक आप फोकस नहीं करोगे, and till the time you focus on religion, तब तक आपका देश डेवलपिंग ही रहने वाला है. And you see any of the good economies across the world, you see Finland and Sweden, these countries rank very high on happiness.
Yes.
Please study how much percentage of the population out there is religious in nature. And I'm not saying don't be religious. Be religious if you want to be religious. But don't make religion an issue for campaigning. If you're making it an issue for campaigning, then even 10 years from now and 15 years from now, everyone's going to be like, they're going to protect the Hindu Rashtra, or they're going to protect a secular nation. These are not issues that we should be talking about. I think it's young, educated India. We should be talking about issues such as education, such as healthcare, such as mental well-being, such as climate change. Look at what's happening in Delhi. And if this is... I'm dreading going to Delhi now. I have to go to Delhi.
I had to go and it was really, really bad there. Everybody was like wearing a mask. It was like COVID again.
There are people who are selling oxygen on the street, just like how you sell water. And this is the state of our cities, and we are talking about Hindu versus Muslim. So if this is what is going to be, then Bharat, sorry to say, I'm a strong believer in the Viksit Bharat campaign, but Bharat kabhi viksit banega hi nahi.
And what do you think is the right course? For example, for our high AQI also.
AQI, the problem is that we think that it is a lot of people believe that it is not a problem that is hitting home. And for us, it is very important to sensitize the older generations also. I know a lot of young people believe very passionately in climate change. But a lot of old people think that this is simple hogwash. Okay. Now, just to correct this, the Climate Risk Index came out a couple of days ago. And out there... they came up with the statistics where between 1994 and 2025, you've had approximately 9,700 extreme weather-related events, which have led to 832,000 lives that are lost. And that is $4.5 trillion that are lost per se. Now, this is what's happened in the world outside. In India, we have had 80,000 lives that have been lost and $170 billion that we've lost per se. This is the impact on ground. If we don't rectify this problem, by 2047, जब भारत विकसित बनेगा, तभी the temperature will also increase by 2.7% degrees Celsius. And therefore, Bharat is going to become much hotter. 160 million people are going to be displaced in our country. Now, in our country, if we have a climate refugee problem, imagine how are we going to deal with that at that juncture. So for everybody who says that, look, climate change is a hoax, then what about the islands of Kiribati that are disappearing? What about Maldives that is disappearing? What about our low-lying lands that are fast dissipating? What about the fact that today in our country, when we walk around, we have to wear those oxygen masks, and it's not just about the pollution that we've caused, but also a dramatic shift in the climate that has taken place. So I think climate change is a very big problem, but people don't talk about it enough in those who make decisions. The thing is, you and I talk about it, but those people say, "Arey," and you know, this is the problem. The problem is that हमारे ज़माने में तो मतलब ये इशू नहीं आने वाला है,
So
तो
why should we care about
तो
it?
अगले ज़माने का इशू है, तो अगले ज़माने वाले लोग देखेंगे, या फिर ये इशू है ही नहीं.
I think because it doesn't impact directly to people, that is why they don't take it as seriously, right?
Correct, but in Bombay, we are smoking up to 6 to 8 cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
And in Delhi, with the current AQI of close to 600, we are smoking 25 cigarettes a single day. So if you are smoking this much, might as well become a chain smoker.
Yeah.
It is disastrous. And the fact that there is an entire generation that is oblivious to this that is taking place, and everyone will do that lip service saying, yes, it is very important, we have to do something about climate change, but kuch nahi hota hai.
But so many people protested, right? in
And what
Delhi
happened to them? They got jailed.
Yeah.
They got jailed for protesting. And now if that kind of thing is going to happen, then people will start questioning other elements of our democracy, saying as to why are they being... So I think somewhere we must realize that issues such as climate change are Indian issues. And this is what I keep saying, that हम लोग Western नज़रिए से देखने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. The first poem or the first literature that was written when it came to climate change was in fact written in Indian Shastras. In the Atharva Ved, in the Prithvi Sukt, there is the first hymn that is dedicated to Mother Nature. In India, we used to worship the 5 elements per se. The 5 elements are the elements which are around us and are within us, and that is Mother Nature. The fact that we used to be worshipping nature and taking care of nature, and today we call it Ganga Ma or Yamuna Ma. And you see the state of affairs of those rivers, and you will think that how are we worshipping these water bodies? So India, unfortunately, has started talking about climate change, and I hope that the politicians, if at all there's any upcoming budding politician or any person who's in a position of effecting change, listens to this and says that, look, I want to make this an election agenda. When religion will be replaced with climate change, this nation will become Viksit for sure.
Okay, now tell me, Rishabh, when you know the problems and you know the solutions and you have all the information that God has given to you, you are like saying all of these things with so much detail, why wouldn't you be a part of the system so you can change it? Because we would need people like you to be able to do it.
No, Aleena, that's very kind of you. Political parties have also been kind enough in order to mention saying, Rishabh, you should. But what I do believe is that somebody needs to be outside the system to create leaders. If everybody is going to be a part of the system and become a leader, then who is the one who is creating them? And to be able to have an objective lens. See, as soon as you join politics, you need to take the right or the left. And like I've written in the book, there is nothing right in the left and nothing left in the right. So the idea that to join these existing political parties and listen to the high command culture out there is something that I don't think is going to be in the interest of young people who want to bring about rampant change. That there is no other solution to this is also the reality, and therefore one has to join the system in order to change the system.
And if you had to create your own?
No, that's A, not possible, and B, that's not my area of interest. My area of interest is Swami Vivekananda said that, you give me 100 young men and I will revolutionize this country. That time the population was, I think, 120 or 140 million, if I'm not wrong. Today we are 1.4 billion. And 1.4 billion, you need many more thousands of young people who are conscientious leaders, not just in politics, but in cinema. There's so many people from I.I.M.U.N that are in cinema and in different walks of life who essentially have to echo the Bharatiya consciousness and then in their own way try to bring about change, which so many people from I.I.M.U.N are doing in their own manner. But I do see them frustrated at times. I get frustrated and you're banging your head and saying, education ko budget do, and public's like, but mandir ko budget nahi milega, masjid ko budget nahi milega, and I have nothing against mandir and masjid, please understand this, but I don't think that even God was interested in the mandir and masjid. Really, sorry, but I really don't think that Buddha was interested saying, mere golden statues banao. Like, imagine the man who walked away from gold.
Yeah.
We are making golden statues of him, putting him in places of worship, and then queuing up outside and saying, look, this is something that you should pay obeisance to. Rather than saying, desh ko viksit banane ke liye infrastructure banao. So, yeah.
Why is the age limit 22?
I think 22 also now is... it's too much. I think earlier 22 was fine because after 22 they've got a well-formed mind. The prefrontal cortex is developed more or less. They know what they're doing, they know what they're saying, and therefore I think it's very important to let them do then what they have to do. The 22 today has become perhaps 18 because at 18 they tell me saying, Rishabh, I know this is what I want to do and I know this is how I will do it, and then they should be given the freedom to be able to pursue that. Earlier that was 22 at a particular point in time. Now of course I think it's a very smart generation. It's far too smart, and like I said, it's the best hope that we've had thus far.
Tell me, what is the difference between the youth of when you began to now? That's the difference, I think, between millennials and Gen Z, right?
That's the difference between millennials and Gen Z. We had charisma, they have riz. We had delusion, they have delulu. And we tried to look up Google. They answer it through ChatGPT faster than we can Google. They're a better generation. They're faster. They're much more observant. But they also have more ADHD than ever before. Because to keep their attention intact and to keep them hooked on to this podcast, for example, will require a lot of edits.
Yes.
And a lot of and R's removed. Because if you keep that, then they are not going to pay attention. Because they are used to the age of instant gratification and quick information, and therefore they have a lot of benefit with the advancement of AI, but at the same point in time I do feel that it's a generation that's been bombarded with information and reels, so it's TMI. So that I think is the difference between young people back then when I started and today. Also I do feel that one of the things which I do feel is that the definitions of hard work have changed. Today, I see that hustle culture is the buzzword. Today, you are talking about hustling, and hustling is not, in my opinion, an Indian concept.
Okay.
It is mindlessly working and without any end goal. As soon as you reach that goal, then you have a new goal. So you earn 1 billion and then you say, I want 10, and then 10 becomes 100 and never stops. Hard work was very different. Hard work is working for, is seva bhav, is working for not just yourself, but society. And I do feel that certain elements, not Gen Z as a whole, but certain elements, not because of their fault, but because they are growing up with sharks in tanks. They're growing up with real models. They're growing up with influencers. They're growing up with not necessarily the right podcasters. It's not their fault. You're getting that kind of clickbaity information, and that's the one kind of model life that they've been given and prescribed, and therefore they are consuming it. So I do feel in that case, we were better off because we never had so much of information. We had a very boring lifestyle, so to say. If the television was not working, we didn't have the choice of going to OTT. We had no option but to go out and play cricket or football or any other sport. Today you've got all sorts of technology. You can play cricket and football indoors. So that's the part that I think they're missing out on. And apart from that, like I said, they're the smartest generation. If they're equipped in order to just think outside the algorithm, I think they'll be able to do much faster, much better things in a faster manner than any generation has.
Got it. If you had to redo what you're doing and start over today with I.I.M.U.N, what would you do differently?
To be really honest, as cliche as it sounds, every failure, and I've had more failures than success. I've had more people who don't know us because we've not had the habit of taking references. So I wrote to you saying, Aleena, this is the book, this is what I'm doing. Is this your area of interest? Because I believe in that concept very strongly. We've had more failures than successes, and there have been many roadblocks that the organization has faced. But I don't think I would have done anything differently. But because each roadblock has taught me so much more. And in retrospect, when I look at it, I just feel that they're good experiences to have.
What is the biggest roadblock you've seen?
Young people not being taken seriously. If you want me to give an example, I can give an example.
Yes.
But I was at the permanent mission in New York, in the United Nations, and this is our highest place of government representation to the United Nations. And we went in there and we had asked for an appointment from the ambassador. And the ambassador was woefully late. And which is fine because the ambassador has more pressing things to do than humor a 22-year-old. And I understand that. But then the ambassador came inside and sat down and said, "What do you want from me?" So I said, "So we don't want anything from you. We just want, we're doing this program in the United Nations, and if they could just tell the UN saying that we are an Indian organization, like India में तो कितने organizations है, कितना कुछ करते हैं, why should we support you?" type
What
of a
did you
thing.
want from them?
Nothing. I just wanted them to tell the United Nations this is an Indian organization, because the UN has a procedure saying that you need to get vetted by your own government as well,
Okay.
per se. But he said, why should I entertain and oblige? That went on for a good 15 minutes, in which after 15 minutes he just dismissed the case. He said that, there is, ऐसे तो बहुत बच्चे आते हैं to do
Okay.
something. And then he dismissed the organization's petition and plea.
Okay.
Mindful of the fact that the man was almost an hour and a half late,
Okay.
had no courtesy whatsoever. And then after that, I've seen these same people, if you give a call from a parliamentarian, now there are people from I.I.M.U.N who are parliamentarians.
Okay.
You give, a parliamentarian makes the call to the ambassador who's sitting out there. The ambassador will stand outside the airport to welcome the parliamentarian.
Oh God.
So,
I thought this was only in India.
no, this is world over, and these are Indians only, no? These are Indians only who are in
that's
these
why.
places. So, the idea is that when you do things on merit, meritocracy in our country is not valued. And I can say this safely. If you remove the privilege, which I did in I.I.M.U.N, I removed the privilege and said that let me reach out to Aleena and let me see whether this book works on merit. If it works on merit, if my conversation is something that interests her, then let's have this conversation. But it would be very different if a film star would have told you, saying, "Arey, wo Rishabh is there. This is the thing that he's doing. Can you please look at it?" You may not have seen it differently, but I am confident that 99 out of 100 people in our country would see it differently. Saying that sifarish se jo insaan aata hai, to you will look at him very differently from a normal person. So I've seen this many times, that young people are not taken seriously. They are dismissed. They are given lip service to. And even today, when I see, if I color my hair and I go to places, I kind of realize that, Ari, he must be what age? How much would he know? Why is this ageism yet there in our country? And if you don't carry a surname, then how you are viewed is very different. So
That's true.
I do firmly believe that meritocracy in our country needs to be given much more importance. And I do sincerely hope that all platforms become as democratic as podcasts have, where everybody who can speak well articulately and can do a good interview and can put together a decent setup can start a podcast. And that's a very democratic process, and it's a very democratic field to be in. But I just hope that all other places become as democratic, and hopefully at some point they will. So I.I.M.U.N's faced a lot of challenges, Aleena, but young people are not taken seriously, and I see that even today, because
Is
today
that in all different sectors and industries, or particularly some?
politics for sure, politicians don't take young people seriously, but across.
Okay.
Because what happens is that when you are 18 and 19 and you have an opinion, at that juncture people think you're a presumptuous teenager. My granddad thought that. I was a presumptuous teenager. But the idea that because people think like this, therefore to be taken seriously with what you're doing is much more difficult. Today, of course, India has become a little more egalitarian, that young people are not stereotyped. But earlier it was like, तुम जवान हो तो तुम बुद्धू हो. जब तक तुम्हारे सिर पे 100 white hair नहीं आते, तब तक whatever you say is not going to be taken into consideration. So at least we grew up in a time where young people were not taken as seriously. Today, of course, you've got a country where you've got an average age of 28. So it's going to, unfortunately for the people who don't want to take young people seriously, choice ही नहीं है. वो अभी इतने सारे young लोग हैं, तो आपको seriously लेना ही पड़ेगा. But it's yet, I think, lip service. They are not being included as much as they should.
Got it. Tell me, you've run this solo for so long. So tell me the loneliest part of doing this by yourself.
I think people keep changing.
Is that a problem?
Yeah, because what happens is that you grow fond of people, because you work with people, and like Pratik, for example, right? So Pratik became a good friend. And then Pratik has to leave because he has to go and earn money. He has to earn a livelihood. He has to do something in his life. Then these people leave, and then that leaves a huge void, because my life is essentially I.I.M.U.N, and my life is with young people. And when these young people then have their own careers in their lives, then that part of it becomes...
That's difficult.
That's difficult in the sense that then that attachment that is there, that is formed, that human attachment that is there, as minimal as one wants to keep it.
That would be still there, right? It doesn't go.
It doesn't go, but then you don't see them. And then when you don't see them, then it's
You're empowering them to go out
Yeah,
there
yeah, of course.
at the end of the day.
So it's the thing that you have to, the quid pro quo that you have to give in order to make sure that people are successful. But yeah, that's something that I feel is difficult. But the plus side of that is I get to meet and work with
New people.
newer young people, and now the age difference is considerable now in comparison to when I started, and I'm learning so much more from them. And sometimes I do get frustrated. I get very frustrated because it's very difficult. It's a very different generation.
What is the most difficult part? For me, it's patience. To teach patience. Like, listen, it's going to take some time. You have to wait it out for some result to come or some way to go, because I feel like this generation wants everything quickly, and it's not the fault of theirs. It's because, again, their environment is such that they've got, instant likes and instant things, but having to tell them that, listen, if you do the harder thing, you'll get results in the longer time, but that's going to be much more sustainable and fulfilling to you than if you got something quickly.
No, very true. You definitely have to tell them in order to put in the hard yards, that for sure. But I do think that they do. Once they understand the fact that there is no other way to it, then they automatically start doing that. But one other challenge also that I've faced is the fact that they zone out very quickly.
Attention span is the problem.
They zone out, and they're looking at you. You are giving a very passionate argument about a subject area, and you think that they're paying attention. And then you finish the 1 hour discourse, and then you're like, so did you understand what I was saying? And the person will even nod. This is the beauty of it. The person nods at the end of it, so you know that the information has been disseminated. You think and you assume. Then you assume that the person will end up doing everything that you've said, or at least 20% of it. But you ask them the next day, saying, "तो आपने ये किया कि नहीं?" Like, आपने बताया था ये? And then sometimes I begin to question myself, saying,
Rishabh, I think it is the thing where you have to learn of how you can make your voice modulation maybe in such a way
I
that
agree.
people listen for longer, because that's the hack that I learned. Like, I used to be a very monotonous, very soft-spoken person when I was like 16, 17. And when I got into the business, I was like, this is not working. Nobody's listening to me. Everybody thinks I'm a small kid and I need to deal with seniors. And so I learned voice modulation and body language. So I'm interesting enough for people to take instructions from.
No, it's very true. Perhaps voice modulation will have to be slightly better, and somehow I'll need to make sure that they pay rapt attention to everything that is being said. But like you said, that it's not their fault. It's essentially the fact that you've got an Instagram reel, then you've got another choice, then you've got a third one, and in the first 2 seconds, if you've not got their attention, you've not got the like.
Gone, yeah.
And even if you've got their like, it's not that they've watched the reel. So the idea that to get their attention in that time span, it's really challenging. And therefore, I do think that, like you said, patience, and also the hope that they don't zone out. Because if you zone out from a very important conversation, for example, I've had so many cases where somebody's taking an interview of some really eminent person, and Shabana Azmi is talking out there, and the kid is taking an interview, and the kid just suddenly goes like,
Oh my God.
And I'm not saying this only of people from I.I.M.U.N, but I'm saying this from your fraternity as well, where I've seen people completely zone out. And you're in the middle of a podcast with somebody who's really important, and when they ask you a question, all that you can say is, And I'm like, so is that your best response? Are you actually sitting across? And imagine these are the role models. So that's the problem that is there. We started with that. That's the problem. They're looking at these guys. They're saying it's okay in order to tell a person on the opposite end, if you don't have a response, it's okay to just go like, and without even acknowledging the fact that they ask you a question. So I just feel that they not got good role models. There are very many good role models, but they're just not getting projected. And therefore, it remains my endeavor, and I'm going to do this with you also if you're open to it. Send you profiles of people who are good people, who are not on podcasts, who are not giving podcasts, who are young, who are cool, who are not like me.
Yes.
Don't give so many statistics and gyan, but who are cool, nice people in different walks of life.
Who don't necessarily need to show it. I've reached out to so many people like that myself. Like, listen, you have so much value. You have so much input. It's not necessarily that they are famous, but they have so much good content. But they are like, no, we don't want to do that. We want to work behind the scenes only. We're happy there only. Like one of my friends, Arihant, he runs this company called WLDD in the media field. And they run a big, very large meme marketing agency. And now, of course, it's become a media the house. And the founders are he's built something great and he's doing so well. But like he said, I won't come to the podcast. Like you take somebody from my company and all, I'm not doing it. Because he wants to work on the back end only. He doesn't necessarily have to talk about his work on a podcast.
Aleena, these are the kind of people, I don't know this gentleman, but from the conversation that you just mentioned, these are the kind of people that need to come, right? Because if they don't come, I'll tell you what happens. If they don't come, then you're getting only one unidimensional type of people who have a particular projection that is there, and therefore young people are listening to that kind of music, seeing that kind of OTT, seeing that kind of content being produced, and then you have only one choice, and therefore that's what I mentioned, step outside the algorithm and check whether it is the algorithm that you are echoing or whether it's your own thought. And that's the key message of even young, wired and not woke, that try to step outside the algorithm per se.
Got it. But I do want to close this with asking you, if you had to pick one most famous I.I.M.U.N chapter of yours, what would that be and why?
There are quite a few conferences that have stood out, but...
And maybe like throw in an international one, because I want our audiences to know how that impacts India.
One conference that really stood out was the conference that again takes me back to the one that took place in the year 2017 in the United Nations. To get the building permission, we did it in 2016 and 2017, and to get the permission of the building is not just like going and renting a hotel. You need to follow an entire bureaucracy and different countries and so on and so forth, and then you need to get permission slips, so it's a whole long tedious process. And of course, our ambassador back then, who I've written about in the last book, Nothing But the Truth, where I've written saying Ambassador Syed Akbaruddin, who promised us saying, अगले साल आप लोग आओ और मैं आपको जो बड़ा यूनाइटेड नेशंस का हॉल है 1000 लोगों का, वो मैं आपको देता हूँ. तो हम लोग ने 1000 लोगों को इकट्ठा किया. 1000 people getting a passport and a US visa is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
The ones who come from privilege may have the passport, but yet the US visa is a challenge. And we managed to get everything in order, put everything in place. Suddenly, 2 weeks prior to the conference, हम लोगों ने पूछा, सर पत्र नहीं आया, परमिशन का लेटर नहीं आया अब तक, तो लेटर आप प्लीज दीजिए, then only we'll be able to enter the premises. You can't just walk inside. He said, no, we can't. Not him, but one of his secretaries said, sorry, we can't give you permission to do this event. I said, sir, अब क्या बात कर रहे हो? हम लोग ने सारी सुविधा कर ली है. There are people coming, hotel is booked, 1,000 people's logistics in the United States of America for an organization that is a youth-run organization is almost an impossible task. Big travel companies have told us no, saying we can't do this because such a movement we won't do. We've done everything, and suddenly the man says this. The girl who worked on that conference was giving her engineering papers. I remember it very vividly when that call came in and she had a paper the next day. That's the first case of mental health that I saw personally. She got depressed. She was unable to give her paper. She got a KT in that paper. And because we had not got the permission to go out there, she was depressed. The organization was depressed, and we were at the loss of finding a solution. Then suddenly the same girl said, Rishabh, you've said in many of your bhashans, which you keep talking, nobody listens, but she had heard one. She said, if you can't catch your ear from here, catch it from the other side and catch it like this. So I said, what do you mean? She said, the United Nations को directly लिखते हैं ना. Why just ask the Indian government? We'll just ask the United Nations directly. तो United Nations को उसने पत्र लिखा. तो I said, listen, it's not like that the United Nations is sitting free. यहाँ मोदी जी इतने busy है, तो वहाँ कितने busy हो गए लोग. तो she said, let's try. So we wrote the letter. Surprise, surprise. They responded immediately and they said, we are expecting you in a week's time. We said, we are also expecting ourselves in a week's time.
Wow.
They rang up Delhi. They rang up back channels and said, why are you not giving these kids a go-ahead? I got a call saying, Rishabh, why are you complaining to people? I said, I'm not complaining to people, but you're not giving me permission. And then from the United Nations end, they managed to do everything. We got permission to do the event out there. 1,000 kids went out there on the 15th of August 2017. There were diplomats from many countries who were present out there. Young 22-year-old girl held the tricolor up high and sang the national anthem out there. And that for me was a great moment, because a girl who failed engineering, then, and the best part of the story is yet left, the girl who failed engineering, the ambassador, of course, was was not kind. He did not. He got offended, saying that we complained and all of that. But this girl who finished her engineering, and then her parents wanted her to study abroad. Now, as you would know, some of the best universities don't look at a KT very kindly. So all counselors said, saying, "Isko to admission nahi milega," and the girls came to me and said, "Rishabh, I want to study in these schools, and because of you, I failed." So I said, "Look, let's apply to all of these schools." She wrote her story saying, "Whilst preparing for this event, I had given my examination and I flunked, but I managed to do this event, and this is what it is." The girl had a KT and is perhaps the first of their kind in order to get into all Ivy League schools and get 100% scholarship at NYU Stern, finished 2 years of NYU, then worked in the United Nations, then headed a United Nations division, realized that the United Nations is run also by the US government, and then realized the real power lies in the US government out there. So she is joined and started working out there. In 20 years from now, if you hear of a new Zoran Mamdani or a new Kamala Harris, that would be Kashvi Jaggi. But these are the kind of stories that I'm most excited by, because these are stories of resilience, and I had nothing to do in this entire story. As you would have seen, it was a young 22-year-old who managed the entire thing by herself and managed to take these people out there. So I've just been very lucky, Aleena. I've been lucky that I've been surrounded by people like Akhilesh, who's sitting on the other side of the camera, or Kashvi, or Pratik Davare, or the many famous ones who've been a part of the organization. I've got to learn a lot from them. And
how lovely. I'm glad you told this story, because otherwise you don't get to hear about the back end workings of it.
Yes. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's very challenging. And I've seen normal people go through all kinds of hell in order to emerge victorious. And when they do emerge victorious with these kind of stories, it's the most fulfilling. And I do know that if this had any other tangent to it, then there would be 100 ways of doing what I.I.M.U.N currently does. But because the tangent is very pure, it's for young people and by young people, then it remains thus. And therefore, like I said, a Karan Johar comes for the young people, and a Shashi Tharoor comes for the young people, and a Mohan Bhagwat comes for the young people. None of them come for any other purpose.
Right. That's lovely. And what an amazing story. And I personally, like I replied to you when you reached out to me, that I have been seeing and following your journey for so long. And I am a fan of what you've built, because it's not easy to build the world's largest youth organization.
One of the world's largest youth
India's largest youth organization. So I'm glad that you shared all of these anecdotes and stories with us. And I am looking forward to reading the book again more carefully.
I'm very glad that you had me on, and I'm very happy that the conversation took place like this. I'm grateful.
I hope a little bit change in the podcaster's view has come towards the end of this conversation for you.
At the start of the conversation, I said I'm not against podcasters. At the end of the conversation, I will maintain that I'm not against podcasters. I'm against performative podcasting, which is unfortunately like performative politics and performative religion, which will take our country only in one direction. So this conversation has been very nice, and I do hope to have many more conversations like this, and recommend many more such people who can come and who have real stories to share as well. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Aleena.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for watching another episode. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.